Welcome back to Giants Mania. So first off, I'm sorry this is a late upload. I kind of had a busy day today. I was up in North Jersey, but I'm finally doing this at 10:51 p.m. The Giants have signed Kenny Golladay. I'm sure all of you know this, and it's a 4-year, $72 million deal, basically $18 million per year. Probably won't look like that. I have what Dan Duggan tweeted over here on the left about how his cap hit could look. We'll find out the actual details coming up soon, I'm hoping for. But it is $76 million of a max and $40 million guaranteed. So a lot of money, I get it. But I do think this was essential for the Giants. I've said this in the past. I thought Kenny Golladay was the guy the Giants had to have, and I know he's coming off an injury. I think he played like 5 games last year. It's risky business, I get it, but not every free agent guy is perfect. There's a reason these guys hit free agency sometimes, and I know Kenny Golladay has his flaws. Everyone talks about, the separation, the injuries. I don't really care about that stuff. Kenny Golladay has played 16 games in a season and 15 games in a season. And the separation stuff, I get it. He's not the best separator. That's not why you're paying him. You're paying him to box guys out, make contested catches, be a red zone threat, be one of the best downfield receivers. You're not paying him to be a separator. He's not Jalen Waddle. He's not Stephon Diggs. He's not Keenan Allen. There's a reason that Kenny Golladay is like 6'4", so he uses that size to his advantage. And I'm kind of tired of hearing about the separation stuff. We've seen it already. This guy at one point led the league in touchdowns. He's had 2 seasons over 1,000 yards. I think he had over 1,100 one year. This guy has had back-to-back really great seasons as a wide receiver. So I'm not concerned about that. I mean, as I said, not everyone's perfect. I completely get that. But I think the Giants kind of had to make this move. You can say $18 million per year is a lot, and I get that, of course. But at the same time, the Giants had to get this guy. You maybe could have went into the draft without getting Kenny Golladay, and you maybe could have gotten a Waddle or Devontae Smith and kind of risk it that way. But why not go out and get Kenny Golladay and then also take a receiver in the draft? I'm one of those people that I am 100% okay if the Giants go out in April and take a Jalen Waddle or even a Kyle Pitts if he falls or something like that. Like, I would be totally fine doubling down, if you will, on wide receivers. So we'll find out what they do. But for Kenny Golladay, Dan Duggan tweeted this, and I think this could make sense based on the cap hit and all that. And I've brought it up in the past. The Giants at one point had $2 million in cap space. It was not looking good. Then they got the extension done with Leonard Williams. It was only an $11 million cap hit for him this year as compared to $19.3 on the franchise tag. And of course, there are rumors about him making over $20 million per year. And while that's true for 2022 and 2023, in 2021, Leonard Williams' cap hit's only $11 million or something. So it's really not that bad. And for Kenny Golladay, he might not have a big cap hit in his first year. And the Giants, I think, will have more money on the books next year. Hopefully, in general, for the NFL, the cap rises. You can get a guy like Nate Solder completely off your books. I'm sure a few others I'm forgetting. So there is that advantage of it. So Kenny Golladay might be a guy, as Dan puts here, he might make $22 million per year against the cap for the next 3 years, but I'm not really too concerned about that. This is a guy that is actually a wide receiver one. Once again, don't care about the separation stuff. One of the best, catch point guys. He's one of the best at attacking the ball. He makes very tough contested catches. He is not afraid to get hit over the middle. He uses that body to his advantage, and he's a good receiver. So I think the Giants made a good move here. And I said this before, this is probably the most excited I've been for a free agent signing since Olivier Vernon. And Vernon was one that kind of came out of the blue. I mean, his name was connected to the Giants a lot because they had all the cap space. They already signed Jenkins and Snacks Harrison at that point. But I remember watching like ESPN. I remember where I was and all that, what type of day it was. And then Adam Schefter's on TV. He breaks the news, checks his phone, that Olivier Vernon signed with the Giants. And I was a very, very happy kid. I was probably, I don't know how old I was at that point, maybe like 19 or something. But very happy moment for me. But this was cool. And it was more expected because, this was weird because Kenny Golladay was basically in Jersey, for 3 days or so. It felt like he slept over at the Giants facility. Or not actually slept over. He probably slept at a hotel or something. But he apparently stayed overnight, whatever that means. And he was with them for like 2 or 3 days. And you figured like something has to give here. You have to get this done or either don't get it done. So it dragged on a while and it definitely like created a lot of like suspenseful moments for Giants fans. But at the same time, I was always confident they would get this done. And that's why I tweeted a month ago exactly to this day that I had that weird confidence that if Gallaudet hit the open market that the Giants would make a big run at him, and I thought they would get him. So I'm not like too surprised by this, and I thought the Giants would get him despite teams like the Bengals and the Ravens getting in there late, but I think they were offering like 1-year deals. The Giants give him the multi-year deal. I think this is a fair contract for a guy like Gallaudet. I know that the cap number is lower this year because of the pandemic. I get all that, but 4 years and $72 million for a guy like Gallaudet, 27 years old, coming off the hip injuries, had hamstring issues in the past. I think it's a fair deal. So I don't think he's getting like snubbed in any way because of the offseason it is. But still, I think the Giants got themselves a great receiver here. I think it makes sense. And, where does Kenny Golladay rank amongst the NFL in receivers? I think he's top 20. I'm not going to go out and say he's top 5. I'm realistic. But I think he's somewhere in top 20. If Daniel Jones takes a step, he might be top 15, maybe even top 10 if it's in the right situation. And we've seen ex-receivers have success in Jason Garrett's offense. Remember Dez Bryant? He killed us for years. And Dez Bryant was a guy who kind of similar to Kenny Golladay in some ways. He was a bit shorter, I feel like, but Dez Bryant wasn't the best separator, wasn't the smoothest route runner in the world, but knew how to use his body, was great at high pointing the ball, very good at contested catches. That's what Kenny Golladay can be for this team. So I feel like as long as Daniel Jones is willing to throw the ball up there in 50-50 situations and give Golladay a chance to win these things, he'll be a good receiver for this team. Like, I expect Golladay to produce for this team when he's on the field. Now, I don't know about his health. No one can predict that. And look, it's the same thing with Nate Solder. I don't really get on Dave Gettleman's ass too much about Nate Solder because the Giants kind of had to do it. I preferred Andrew Norwell that offseason, but Nate Solder was, it kind of had to happen because the Giants had such a massive hole at left tackle thanks to Jerry Reese. But, I don't look back on that and say, oh, Dave, you're an idiot for making that signing. I'll do the same thing with this one. If Kenny Golladay, for some reason, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if for some reason he's just hampered by injuries the next 3 years or so, barely plays and doesn't make an impact, I'm not going to look back on that and say, oh, the Giants are so stupid for signing Kenny Golladay. I can't say that. I'm going to look at it right now and say, based on this roster, this team not having wide receiver 1, having a quarterback in year 3 that needs to get better, this move makes a lot of sense. I don't care if it's $8 million or $18 million per year. You had to get this guy. So I'm fine with it from that perspective. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and look back on it and say, oh, you're stupid. I'm saying it right now. This was a good move for the Giants. They kind of had to do it. I didn't want to spend a crazy amount of money on this guy. As I said, $72 million, 4 years, seems kind of fair for a Kenny Golladay type receiver at age 27. The Giants get him throughout his prime. I understand he has some issues with the separation, the injuries. Doesn't matter. He's a great receiver in my opinion. Top 20. He'll be fine for this team. A perfect fit in my opinion. So people will ask probably, and I'll try to answer some questions here, where does the Giants wide receiver core rank amongst the NFL? So I've heard people say top 5, which once again is crazy to me. But before this signing happened, the Giants were probably realistically bottom 5 in the league because their best receiver was Sterling Shepard, who on most teams is like, an average wide receiver 2, maybe a low end 2 on some teams. But the fact that we now have a wide receiver 1, you add that to a group that has Darius Slayton, even a guy like John Ross, a guy like Dante Pettis, who was, once a high second-round pick, and of course Ross being a former first-round pick. You have some guys with upside and guys that have been proven in this league. I think Sterling Shepard, despite his injury history, has been proven in this league. Darius Slayton, while he hasn't been consistent, has proven that he is at least a good wide receiver 3 in this league. And then you have Kenny Golladay, who I think is a wide receiver 1. So I still think the Giants need some help at wide receiver. It's not perfect, but I think the Giants are somewhere around league average. I think they're somewhere from like 13 to 17 in terms of wide receivers in the NFL. I'm not going to go out there and say they're top 10. I could probably name much better receiving cores. You talk about the Chiefs, of course, you talk about the Buccaneers, the Atlanta Falcons with Ridley and Julio Jones. Like, there's better teams out there with wide receivers. So I'm not going to say the Giants are top 10, but they're somewhere league average, which had to happen because, once again, you can't go into 2021 giving Daniel Jones garbage to work with. So I'm happy the Giants made this move. Another question is, what does Gallaudet bring to this Giants offense? So the Giants, as we know last year, and even Daniel Jones took a step backwards in red zone efficiency. And I think the Giants, even adding a guy like Kyle Rudolph, and by the way, I'll talk about all the rest of the free agent moves they made, like Mike Glennon, the Vikings pass rusher, whose name I'll get down eventually. Who else did they sign? John Ross, I got to get into in depth on. But I'll talk about those signings in the coming days. I want to talk about those signings, the contracts. I'll go into depth with all that stuff coming up in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that one. But this, of course, was the big signing, so I wanted to talk about this. But Gallaudet brings a great red zone threat to this team. He should make Daniel Jones once again a better red zone quarterback. And everyone talks about Daniel Jones' deep ball numbers. They were great last year. Kenny Golladay, by the numbers, has been one of the air yard leaders. He's one of the best deep ball receivers in the league based on the numbers. So you put those two together, and that should be a perfect, a match made in heaven. Now, Jason Garrett, and hopefully with the help of Freddie Kitchens, who I think was promoted in some way, will hopefully go downfield more and make this more of a vertical offense. I mean, Kenny Golladay, as I've said, not not the best route runner. He will make the tough catches over the middle, but not the best route runner. So I want them to go deep with Kenny Golladay, give him chances. When you see like a one high safety look, try and look one safety off, go to the other side with Gallaudet, and try to make something happen. Make those big splash plays happen when you have Kenny Golladay on your roster. So how much better will this make Daniel Jones? Now, I've seen this comparison a lot. I don't want to burst people's bubbles, but once again, I'm realistic. I feel like I'm one of the most realistic Giants fans out there. People always say, why can't Daniel Jones beat Josh Allen? I don't like that comparison. Josh Allen and Daniel Jones are not very similar quarterbacks. Josh Allen might have a top 3 arm in the NFL. Daniel Jones, at best, I think, has an average arm. Josh Allen can make any throw in the book on the run. He can extend plays. He has good pocket awareness. I mean, the guy had an MVP season. I don't think Daniel Jones is at Josh Allen's level. So that's not me saying Daniel Jones stinks. I've never said that. I just think Daniel Jones will not reach an MVP caliber player in the way Josh Allen was this year. So we all know that Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen a better player, but I'm sure Josh Allen himself, we saw from his accuracy, just got better himself as a quarterback. So while, the Stephon Diggs addition helped, it has to go notice that he fixed his mechanics and became a more accurate quarterback. So for Daniel Jones, he arguably played like a bottom 5 quarterback last year. But when you add Kenny Golladay, hopefully an offensive line that gets better, based on osmosis and them getting older and getting more used to the NFL, and maybe adding another receiver or tight end in the draft, I would think that Daniel Jones can be, once again, a league average quarterback. And that's what I thought he could have been when we drafted him. And that's kind of like why I didn't like the pick. But from an upside standpoint, I think he can be what Kirk Cousins or Andy Dalton in Cincinnati. I always say Alex Smith in Kansas City. I think he can be one of those guys. I don't expect Daniel Jones to be an MVP candidate like Josh Allen last year, so that's why I don't like the comparison, because they're much different quarterbacks. But if Daniel Jones can just be good, I don't expect him to be elite, but if he can be good, then that's fine. I'm very happy with that. If Daniel Jones goes out there, throws for 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, doesn't fumble the ball a lot, that's a great season. 64% completion percentage, whatever. I'd be very satisfied with that. Like, I'm not going to go out there and have these unrealistic expectations of Daniel Jones has to throw for 35 touchdowns and 4,800 yards. That's not what I'm saying. He has to go out there and have a good season. That's what I want. So just go out there, get better. The Giants gave you better weapons. They gave you the Kyle Rudolph in the red zone, Kenny Golladay, John Ross going downfield. Hopefully, if he's healthy, that's always a problem for him, but hopefully he stays healthy and has more consistent hands. But the Giants have now given this guy better weapons. Once again, we'll see what the draft brings us, but there's really no excuses for Daniel Jones going forward next year. Daniel Jones had the built-in excuses this year, and I think people were a little too easy on him. I think some of it was his own doing sometimes, but Daniel Jones, I think there's a reason his stats didn't look good this year. The team around him was not good. Jason Garrett's route concepts were terrible, so Daniel Jones was in no position to be successful. The Giants did nothing to help this guy. Now, finally, in year 3, it looks like they're getting this together. So hopefully, for Daniel Jones' sake, they're going to get this thing on the right track. So it really depends, and that's kind of what scares me about this team, is this team only goes as far as Daniel Jones can take them. The Giants can get a great roster around him, but if Daniel Jones doesn't take the year 3 step forward that we need him to take, then this team won't be much better. But I am expecting him to have a good year next year. That's what I think. I think he can do, once again, the 3,800 yards, 28 touchdown type season. That's what I expect, and that's what I want. So we'll find out if he does it. So people, I guess I'll address this real quick about the whole Dave Gettleman versus Joe Judge thing. I'm not a naive person. I've said that before. I realized that in 2018 and 2019's offseason, when it was Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman, the Giants' offseasons, free agency in particular, were absolutely atrocious. And I have to say that. It's a factual thing to say, and people get mad about that for some reason, but it's factual. You talk about Antoine Bethea, Kareem Martin, Connor Barwin, even Nate Solder, who, once again, I don't hate them too much for that one, but it didn't work. Golden Tate, awful. Jonathan Stewart, Patrick Omameh, go down the list. Awful 2018 and 2019 off seasons. I have been on Dave Gettleman's ass for a long time about that. I voiced my opinion on Twitter about that very much. But you're allowed to change your opinion. I am allowed to admit that in 2020, the Giants had a really good offseason. And I was saying that at the time. I wasn't like a huge Blake Martinez guy. I gave that signing like a C. I gave the Bradbury one a B. I didn't think he'd be a top 5 corner, but he's been playing like it, thank God. But I thought they had a pretty good free agency last year. I gave them an A for the draft, which means I like their draft, obviously. And then this offseason, they're doing great once again. So while Dave Gettleman has he performed like a bottom 5 GM the first 2 years he was here. I can also admit that the last 2 years here have been really good. And I know that all that relies on Daniel Jones and how good he becomes. And can Saquon Barkley stay healthy? Those are definitely two picks that are heavily tied to Dave Gettleman and even Andrew Thomas to a degree. If those guys improve and the Giants keep having good free agencies and good drafts, then I'm not going to be a Gettleman hater. I'm not. I want him to do well. I've always wanted him to do well. I want the Giants to win. But, I think it's fair to admit once again that 2018 and 2019, the guy performed like a bottom 5 general manager. But the last 2 off seasons now, I know the draft hasn't happened yet, but free agency and the draft last year and free agency last year, Dave Gettleman's done a great job. I will sit here and admit that any day. When I think you deserve the credit, I will give it to you. I'm trying to be fair here. I always do. So the guy's been great as a GM the past 2 years. And once again, if Daniel Jones becomes a good quarterback, this Giants team can go places next year. But it all depends on that. I think we have the coaching staff in place. Jason Garrett is a mystery. We'll find out about him, but I feel like that's the one downside. It really depends on Jason Garrett and Daniel Jones. The Giants defense, we know what we're getting. The Giants have a good defense. Patrick Graham's an awesome defensive coordinator. I think Joe Judge is a very good head coach. I think he will be as the years go on and he gets more used to being a head coach, but the offense is still a concern to a degree because Jason Garrett's coming off a terrible season, and so is Daniel Jones, who are possibly the two most important people here. So while getting Kenny Golladay and bringing in guys like Kyle Rudolph and John Ross and all that, hopefully the draft will help those guys. How much better do they get? What type of leap do we see? Do we see a leap from down here to here, or do we see a leap from down here to there? That's what we got to see. So it depends on what type of leap these guys take, but I'm going to be optimistic. I'm happy with what this team's done the past 2 off seasons, so hopefully they continue in that direction. Hopefully the draft in April is another good draft for us. So now 16 minutes in, one of my longer ones in a while, but we'll leave off on this. Dory Jackson, who is a cornerback and outside corner for the Tennessee Titans, is visiting with the Giants tomorrow. Well, basically today when I'm doing this, but tomorrow on Sunday. So Dory Jackson in his first 2 years was a very, very, very good, solid cover corner. Like, he was really good. He's still 25 years old, by the way. And, he's a guy that once again played with Logan Ryan. Hopefully he does some recruiting here once again. Maybe this is part of Logan Ryan. I have no idea. But I think Jackson's visiting with the Giants and then the Eagles after that. Hopefully the Giants get something done here. I mean, I think they can somehow manage to pull this off because once again, what Dan Duggan said here on the left side about the contract, if they give Kenny Golladay a $5 million cap hit or something around there for next year, I'm assuming they can fit in the Dory Jackson, who, if I'm a Dory Jackson, I'm coming off 2 seasons where I'm injured. I think he played 3 games last year. If I'm a Dory Jackson, I'm looking at it as I'm 25 years old. Give me a 1-year prove-it deal on a good defense like the Giants and let me get paid the next offseason. Hopefully stay healthy for 2021 and then get paid next offseason. So we'll find out what type of contract that Dory Jackson is seeking, but I think a 1-year deal for about $5 or $6 million for Dory Jackson is pretty realistic. But the guy's 25 years old, awesome cover corner, outside corner, which is what we need, opposite of James Bradbury. We have Darnay Holmes in the slot. If the Giants can bring in a Dory Jackson, this may be an A-plus free agency for the Giants. And it's hard for me to look past the Devontae Booker signing, which people will complain about. But I look at every move individually. I'm not looking at it as the Giants made 7 great signings and then Booker set. It's like, Booker is in there. The Giants did sign Devontae Booker for what I felt like was too much money. But hey, maybe it works out. It's good insurance for Saquon Barkley to get hurt. But for the first day of free agency, I thought the Giants could have saved money there. But it is what it is. But I still think if they sign a Dory Jackson, they get Kenny Golladay, they sign these other guys like the Vikings pass rusher, they sign Reggie Ragland from the Lions, and they get Kyle Rudolph and John Ross and all those guys. That's like an A-plus type free agency. So I mean, we'll find out what they do, but I really want a Dory Jackson. He's 25, outside corner, very good in coverage. The tackling for him has gotten worse over the years, which is a concern, but he has been playing injured, so that's part of it probably. But if he comes back, has a healthy season, he would be a very, very good cornerback too for this team. So I would love to see that happen. I don't want to lose him to the Eagles, so hopefully the Giants get something done here. What hopefully is a 1-year deal type prove-it deal for $5 or $6 million. I think they can afford that. I'm not sure what the exact cap number is for the Giants right now, but hopefully they find a way to fit that one in there. So that'll do it for this video. I'm very excited. It was a good free agency. It might not be over yet. This is probably it for the big moves. I don't expect to get anybody else out there who's like a big name, but if they can get a Dory Jackson in here somehow, then that would be fantastic. That would be an awesome, cherry on top type of free agency right there. So we'll find out what they do in the coming days with a Dory Jackson. But once again, I'll make a video in the coming days about every free agent signing, what you need to know, my reaction to them. We'll go over the contract details and all that good stuff. So hopefully you guys are tuning in for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. We're getting close to 1,000 subs, so I appreciate that from you guys. And I will talk to you guys next time.